Hello and welcome to the 38th auction. This is our third vlog from Scotch Whisky Auctions. Once again, Big Petrie here to take you through some of the heavyweights, the big dogs as we've been calling them in this auction. But at Scotch Whisky Auctions we don't just focus on the big heavyweights, we also like to drink our whisky. So in this vlog we're going to just highlight a couple of our favourites, good drinking drams. But first up we'll go with the big ones. And the first one we have today is this one. It's a Glenlivet, distilled in 1955 and then bottled a month before its 50th birthday. This is a 49-year-old Glenlivet. Obviously Glenlivet, one of the most famous distilleries in the world, so famous in fact that it gave rise to the longest Glen in the world as other distilleries tried to take advantage of their name and claim their quality for themselves. This next whisky from Highland Park was distilled 3 years earlier, but it was bottled in 1996. So roughly around 43 to 44 years old. This is a great chance to try an old Highland Park, as they're not often seen in independent bottlers at this kind of age. And last but by no means least of our three big ones for this auction, we have this fantastic Balvenie, distilled in November 1965. This is bottled at 2 degrees over proof. It's another independent bottling from Robert Watson in Aberdeen, and Balvenie rarely turns up these days in any form of independent bottling form, so this is a real chance to try something very special indeed. But as I said at the start here, we don't just like our big heavyweight collectible whiskies, we like to drink our whiskies too. So what I'm going to do is introduce them to you now. And we're back. First up, where would the Scotch whisky industry be without bourbon? It supplies 80% of the casks to the industry. So what we thought we'd bring up first is this one from Four Roses, one of the largest producers of bourbon, and this is the interesting one. It's a barrel strength, 51.6%, and rumoured to be one of the very best bottles of Four Roses ever bottled. A cracking dram and a really good insight to the quality that leads to the great casks that we get to mature Scotch. Next up is one of my favourite stories from the Scotch whisky industry in the last couple of years, and this is the Tweeddale blend. Alistair Day had a recipe book from his grandfather's old blending recipes, from his grocer's shop. And over drams one evening he was talking to his father, and they thought, I really should start trying to blend this, and they did. And this is the very first one that they released. It's a very high malt content, around about 50% malt, 50% grain. Really easy to drink, lovely jam, and like I said, one of the best stories from the Scotch whisky industry in quite a few years. Last, but by no means least, because this is my favourite, I have a big soft spot for this. This is Longrow CV. Longrow, coming from Campbellton Distillery, possibly the most esoteric and independent of all distilleries. The Longrow CV is their heavily peated spirit. Longrow is the double distilled spirit, because at Springbank they do things slightly oddly with a triple distilled Hazelburn and a 2.5 distilled Springbank. This is much more straightforward, 2.5 times distilled, 50 parts per million peat, but the CV is not so straightforward, as it's a blend of 7, 10 and 14-year-old single malts, which have come from bourbon, sherry, rum and port casks. This is one of the best drams that I think for just sitting around with friends, being garrulous and setting the world to rights. This is an absolute cracker, and so I'm getting quite thirsty. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, have a look on the site. There's bound to be something for you, from the big dogs we had at the start to the good drinking drams that are behind us there. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, enjoy the 38th auction at Scotch Whisky Auctions. Don't lose your bottle. Hello again. I bet you thought we'd forgotten about our competition winner. Well, we hadn't. This is just a little surprise ending for you there. The winner was Millie Chops. So you're going to get some Scotch Whisky Auctions goodies, and to keep the rest of you, don't keep you in suspense anymore, the answer was indeed Scapa 14-year-old. We'll be running one of these competitions before every auction for the next few while. Some will be easier than others, some will be fiendishly difficult. So keep an eye out, and before every auction, once again, I'll announce the winner here at Big Petrie's vlog. Bye.